Fine. So in today's session, we'll see payables configuration. We'll complete the payables configuration and we'll run the basic P2P cycle flow. After completing, we can focus on core purchasing. So to implement payables application, what base setups we have to complete? Okay. So there are few setups which already we completed as a part of purchasing, which are commonly required by payables application. Fine. So since we completed few setups like these common options required for payables and setting up procurement agent is mandatory for payables and the supplier definition also mandatory. Those all commonly required for this purchasing and payables applications. Anyway, those setups we completed from purchasing application. By ignoring what are the setups we completed from purchasing side, we'll finish remaining setups. Okay, so else just will list out what setups we have to complete to start with the payables. Then we'll make a note which setups already we completed and we'll work on remaining setups. Fine. Say payables basic setups. Payables basic setups. Say configure common options for payables and procurement. And we have to set up invoice options, set up payables payment options, and create distribution sets, create payment terms. So before we create the payment terms, so create reference data sets, so set and create payment terms. Fine, that we'll see as a part of definition. And along with this, we have to set up supplier numbering, and we have to create supplier supplier and supplier address site, and the site need to be assigned to business unit, that you can call as site assignments. Fine. So along with these, we have to create bank branch, bank account, and so create payment process profile, and assign AP roles to user, say provide data access for users or specific user from LDAP. So open periods in AP. Then payables application will allow us to perform the transactions. So these are the very basic setups which we required. So configure common options for payables and procurement. That setup already we completed. Here common options for payables and procurement as a part of payable purchasing configuration we completed, right? So let's mark it as done. We have to complete that setup from payable side or purchasing side. Already as a part of purchasing we completed. And apart from that, what else we completed? The supplier also. Supplier definition also we completed. So number specification we have seen. There is separate task to specify the supplier numbering. And supplier definition also we completed. We tested manual process and FPDA process also. And to create the supplier, so there is some dependency setups which need to be completed. Those also we discussed. So we require employee user. The employee user need to be classified as a procurement agent. Then only we can complete the definition of supplier, including the site creation and the site assignments. So these points already discussed. These are the few other setups which we have to complete to start with the payables application. So set up invoice options. So in payables, when we are creating invoices, to set some sort of controls, how the invoice process should work, with what controls we have to run the process of invoicing. In the same way, payment process. When you are going to create the payments, what sort of controls we require, what defaults we require for the payment process. The required controls we can set for payables and invoices and payments in payables application with the help of these two options. The invoice options and the payment options. We can set the controls for payables application. In case of EBS, we have a payables options. So within the payables options, you can set certain controls for invoice process and the payment process. But in the Fusion, this separated. The invoice related controls they taken into invoice options. Payment related controls we have as a part of payment options. But in EBS, you can see payables options. The same payables option in Fusion you can see by segregating as a invoice options and the payment options. Okay. So we'll just go and complete these two options. So there is no much mandatory information when we are setting up this invoice options and the payment options. Based on the functionality which we use, what sort of controls required, for that purpose only primarily we have to set up these. But since these falls under basic configuration, we'll just navigate and we'll have a look. Fine. Go to our project. Navigate to our implementation project. Go to task list. Manage projects. So we have to search for the task called as invoice options. Okay, we have to search for the task called as invoice options. Search. Okay, the same invoice options available from procurement offering as well as financials offering. You can go with any one of the tasks, both are same but paths are different. So manage invoice options. These options are specific to business unit. For each business unit, you have to set invoice options and payment options to process invoices and do payments. So click on go to task icon. Our system will ask us to specify the business unit. We want to set invoice options for which BU. Select our business unit, select this value, select and add, then say apply and go to task. Find our business unit, select, say OK. Okay, so here we have a manage invoice options. Here you could see is all controls related to invoice entry. Is all when you are going to create invoice, which controls are applicable, which information you can default, that you can specify here. And matching, when you are going to do the matching invoice creation with matching. So these are the controls. The invoices which you create, against those invoices, if you want to apply the discount at the time of payment, these are the controls. And when you're dealing with the prepayment in the payables, these are the controls. These are the approval related, interest related, payment requests, self-service invoices. These are different controls we can implement for the invoice process. But if you look at these invoice options, as of now, nothing is mandatory. The fields which are already mandatory, there is some predefined data. Okay, there is some predefined data available. As of now, just to work on the basic invoice creation process, you don't need to do anything. Okay, so say save and close. The same way, just navigate to payment options, click on go to task icon. So since we selected business unit at the time of invoice options, system is defaulting same business unit for payment options also. Here also you don't see any mandatory fields which you have to set in this stage. So certain default system taken. You can say save and close. But just consider, so invoice options and payment options are mandatory for payables configuration. But there is some default information. So for every BU, whenever you try to perform the setup based on the requirement only, you have to change those. That, and we'll go to create the distribution set. What is the purpose of distribution set? When you are creating invoice in the payables, the invoice amount is belongs to which accounts? Which accounts? Again, the total invoice amount should belongs to which account, how much percentage. If you want to distribute invoice amount automatically across the different accounts by specifying certain percentage or without specifying certain percentage, we can use the distribution sets. Without using the distribution set also, invoice amount we can distribute across the different accounts. That is a manual process. Say for example, you are creating invoice with the 10,000. The 10,000 invoice amount should belongs to 5 accounts. That means, so we are spending the 10,000 amount against 5 type of expense, or it could be some purchases. Okay, for 5 accounts that amount should belongs to. So if the 5 accounts, the amount 10,000, always if you are going to distribute across those 5 accounts with certain percentage, you can use the distribution set, so that whenever you enter 10,000, automatically from 10,000, how much percentage amount should belongs to which account, system will distribute automatically. Or else we can distribute through manual process also. Okay, anyway, let's see how to create the distribution set.
Lakshman, actually the distribution, no, already PO charging is there. Where the distribution, if you take PO charge account, no, from there it has to be
Yeah, got your point. So so this will be useful when you're working on payables if you are creating the invoice through manual process. Okay, when you are creating, if you are matching, yes, system will derive, it will derive from the PO distribution, but this distribution set will be useful if you are going to create invoice without matching. Since just we are covering the basic payables configuration, I included this. Okay, so in the matching process it's not mandatory. Yeah, fine. So we'll see how to create the distribution set. So here we have a distribution sets task. So manage distribution sets. Click on go to task icon. Say create. Select our business unit. I'm just writing the name as this distribution set for expense and click on add. So when you are creating invoice, if you select this distribution set, the invoice amount should be distributed across which accounts with how much percentage that you can specify here. Yes, when you are matching, if you are creating invoice by match through matching process, yes, distribution set is not required. This will be useful for standalone invoices which you create in the payables without matching. Okay, since we are talking about payables basic setups, I am just including this task also, this setup also. So otherwise you may ignore this setup. So I'll say 50% amount system should take into which account. Say some recruiting expense, any accounts just to understand. Say okay, and say remaining 50% we want to take into different account. Take any account, no issues. Okay, so we are creating the distribution set. If you use this distribution set at the time of invoice creation, system will distribute that invoice amount across these two accounts with this percentage. That's all. Say save and close. Fine. Done. Now payment terms. When I talk about payment terms, yes, payment terms are required at the time of purchase order creation also. The same we require for invoice creation. So when you talk about payment terms, if you take example of EBS, say in EBS, if I create one payment term, say I'm creating net 30 payment term, means we have to pay the payment within 30 days. Net payment, net 30 payment term. Do you think this payment term would be available for all the operating units in EBS, or the payment term which you create that would be available for specific operating unit only? How it works in EBS? Would be net 30 or
The specific BU we have to create.
sorry?
Every BU we have to create in EBS, but here through common cell.
Okay. So in EBS, you no need to create operating unit specific. Okay. If you create any payment terms in EBS, that would be available across all the operating units. That means payment term is common definition, can be shared across. But in the Fusion, how it works? Okay, say you have a 10 operating units, you are going to create one payment term. Once you create the payment term, the 10 operating units can access that payment terms. The reason is the payment terms are not specific to operating units in EBS. When you talk about Fusion, here you can create one payment term, and if you create the payment term directly, the payment term won't be available for any business unit. Say I'm creating the payment term called as net 30, and say net 45 and immediate. So we are creating these three payment terms, and say we have BU1 business unit 1 and BU2 and BU3. So we created these three payment terms. As per EBS, if you create three payment terms or 10 payment terms, any payment term, those payment terms would be available directly from operating units. But here you have a three business units and you created three or multiple payment terms. Okay, you created multiple payment terms, but no payment term would be available for any business unit. But how you can make these payment terms to be available for specific business unit? What you have to do is, say for example, the BU1, the BU1 require access to only immediate payment term. So in that case, what we have to do is, you have to create one reference data set. Reference data set called as RDS. We have to create a reference data set. So now to manage the payment terms only for BU1, you have to create the separate reference data set. So you are creating reference data set for BU1. I'll just write it as a RDS reference data set for BU1. Okay. Now what we have to do is, for BU1, how many payment terms you require or which payment terms you require, those payment terms you have to assign to this RDS. So BU1 required access to only immediate payment terms. Now what we have to do is, you have to create the reference data set, you have to assign immediate payment term to BU1 reference data set. Now this reference data set you have to assign to business unit. Assign to BU1. So now BU1 can have access to immediate payment terms with the help of RDS. The same way, BU2 required access to two payment terms. Those are say net 30 and net 45, or else net 45 and immediate. Okay, BU2 required access to two payment terms. Those are net 45 and immediate. What we have to do for BU2, you have to create separate RDS for BU2. Now which payment terms access BU2 is required, those payment terms we have to associate with RDS which we are creating for BU2. Now BU2 require access to net 45. At the same time BU2 require access to immediate payment terms also. So we assign two payment terms to RDS which we created for BU2. Now finally, after assigning these payment terms to BU2 related reference data set, that reference data set we have to assign to BU2. And now BU3 require access to all the payment terms. In EBS, all the payment terms would be available for every operating date. But here, we cannot have all the payment terms for any BU access or specific payment term for particular business unit access directly. So everything you have to manage with the business reference data set only. Now what we have to do, if BU3 require access to all the payment terms, we have to create separate reference data set, and we can associate all those payment terms to that reference data set. Now you can create RDS BU3 and associate all the payment terms to BU3 reference data set. Assign, same, you can just assign all to this reference data set. You can assign net 45 immediate also. So net 45 and immediate. Now this reference data set we have to assign to BU3. This is how it works. Any questions on this, please? That means without reference data set, we cannot provision any payment terms access to any BU. Reference data set is mandatory. You have to create payment terms that we have to associate with the reference data set. That reference data set you have to assign to specific BU. Any questions here to understand this concept, please?
Only one data set is enough. If you want, we can create multiple data sets, right?
I taken the simple example here. So as per example, this example you see how many reference data sets are required. If you want to associate all the payment terms to all the BUs, one reference data set is required. Okay, RDS. If you want to maintain different payment terms for different BUs, for each BU we require separate reference data set. Here I taken the example of 3 reference data sets.
Within the BU, not required multiple data sets. One data set is enough to include all the whatever is the
One
payment
BU, one
term.
reference data set only for payment terms. The same way this reference data set is applicable for many concepts that we'll see. We'll see that list of concepts where this reference data set is applicable. The fundamental point is with the help of reference data set, we can provision the data access for business units. That means payment terms comes under setup related data. The setup data, you can take the decision whether the setup data can be shared across the business units or you want to limit that setup data for specific business unit. For that purpose, we can use, as we know, we don't have this reference data set concept in EBS. They introduced in the Fusion only. Any other questions on this, please? No questions. Fine, now we'll go and see this. Okay, we'll go and see in the system how to create the reference data set, and how to create the payment terms, how the payment terms can be associated with the reference data set. Finally, how we can assign that reference data set to business unit. Okay, first we'll create the reference data set, then we'll create payment terms. The same will assign to RDS reference data set. Finally, we'll assign RDS to BU. So this is what we are going to test. First, we'll go and create the reference data set. Search for reference data sets. So manage reference data sets. Click on go to task icon. It's a very simple definition. We have to provide the name, that's all. Click on add. Here provide the set code. So ERP tree, since it's a code, don't give any space, or else no issues even if you give, nothing wrong. So ERP tree, this reference data set, or else just write it as RDS, no specification you have to give, or else if you want to maintain the reference data sets BU specific, you may write the name as ERP tree USBU reference data set. You can write, just I'm naming it as a ERP tree RDS. Okay, done. So provide code under set name, description if you want to write it, or else ignore it. So save and close. Now we'll go and create the payment terms. Right, we know the purpose of payment terms. With the payment terms only, system can calculate the due date for invoices. Even discount calculation also will depend on payment term only. That means to calculate the due dates and the discounts for the invoices, we use payment terms. Search for payment terms. Manage payment terms. Click on the task and click on go to task icon. Ideally, this BU selection is not required. Nowhere it will be connected to BU directly. But as a part of this setup, they given scope selection, which is not required reality. That is the reason we are selecting. So why they given, if you are doing this setup, for other setups also BU is required. It will default for other setups since this all falls under same task list. Otherwise, for payment terms, you don't need to select any BU for the creation purpose. Fine. Say create. Let's create one payment term as ERP net 30. ERP net 30 and installments. Go to installments. Here you can specify. Here already we written net 30. means we have to make the payment within 30 days. Say 100% due amount we have to pay within how many days? 30 days. Done. So we have to pay within 30 days. If you pay early, you may get the discount. Those specifications you can write under discounts. So if you pay instead of that within 30 days, if you pay within 10 days, we may get 10% discount that you can enter as a first discount. Okay, if you pay within 10 days, how much percentage of discount? If you pay within 20 days instead of 30 days, how much discount? If you pay within 25 days instead of 30 days, how much discount? Those specifications you can enter if discount is applicable for the payment terms. Fine. So just provide the name, and we are entering the percentage and how many days, 30 days. And here is the option to assign this payment terms to reference data set. Okay, set assignments. Click on assign. So below it open the field. Now we have to select our reference data set. That means we are assigning this payment term to our reference data set. We given the name as ERP tree reference data set. So here is our reference data set, ERP tree RDS. Now we assigned our payment terms to our reference data set. This is how you can assign one payment term, multiple payment terms to one reference data set. Even one payment term can be assigned to multiple reference data sets. So here are few other payment terms. This immediate payment term is predefined one, seeded definition which would be available. So we'll go and assign this payment term also to our reference data set. So just click on this payment terms, and this is the immediate payment term. They specified 100% amount need to be paid within 0 days. That means immediate. And this payment term is assigned to multiple reference data sets. You can see here multiple reference data sets already it's assigned. The same payment term will go and assign to our reference data set also. Click on add, let's say assign. If it is opening the field, you can just assign this immediate payment term to our reference data set. That means this immediate payment term should be available for the reference data set whatever we define. By default, Oracle provides two reference data set names. One is common, other one is enterprise as seeded values. As per our requirement, you can create a number of. So now we assigned immediate payment term also to our reference data set. So save and close. Done. We created a reference data set, we created payment terms we assigned to reference data set. Now we have to assign this RDS to our business unit. Okay. So before we perform that setup, let's go to business unit creation page. Manage business units. Unit. Go to manage business unit. Find business unit whatever we created. Manage business unit. Just find out the business unit. So this is a business unit. Just click on the BU name. So This is how we created our business unit, right? We just given the name, and even location is not mandatory field. We should select it so that it will support for relevant processes. If location is not available BU level in certain concepts, it won't support. So as a mandatory, we have to select location. And default set is nothing but reference data set only. So whatever Oracle is providing as a serial value common that we selected at the time of BU creation. So can we change the reference data set here? No, we cannot change the reference data set. Whatever Oracle is providing, that we selected here as a common. But this we can override. This we can override in by using some different task. We'll see the task there only. We are going to select our reference data set, especially for payment terms. But if you select specific reference data set here at the time of BU creation, so in for which concepts this reference data set is applicable, which are belongs to, which are specific to BU, for all those concepts system will take common only. We will go and see that point so that we can understand more detail level. Remember one thing, at the time of BU creation time we selected default set nothing but reference data set only. Wherever you see the term called as set, that is reference data set only, we selected as a common at the time of BU creation. Once you select at the time of BU creation, that you cannot change, but there is option to override, not from here with a different setup. So we'll go and see that. So what we have to do, we have to assign reference data set to our business unit. How to assign this? So for that we have a task called as business unit set assignments. So along with this business unit, you can see the task manage business unit set assignments. Click on go to task icon. So at the time of business unit creation, ERP tree US business unit, we assigned common reference data set. That is the reason. So the common reference data set is applied for all the reference data objects. So for all these we can maintain the reference data sets. We discussed for payment terms. Payment terms we can manage how we require. How many payment terms we require for which business unit, that you can manage by using the reference data set. In the same way, for all these concepts you can use the reference data set. Reference data set concept is applicable for all these concepts. Here you can see big list we got. Okay, for all these concepts reference data set concept is applicable. Now at the time of BU creation we selected common, so that is the reason for all these reference data objects system selected common only. Okay, if you want to change for a specific reference data object you can change it. Now we created our own reference data set to manage the payment terms. Okay, what we can do is go to payment terms. From this list find out the payment terms. Yep, here we have payables payment terms. So since we selected common at the time of BU creation, the BU common only system selected. That means to this common reference data set, how many payment terms are associated, all the payment terms can be accessed by this business unit. So how many payment terms are assigned to this common reference data set, all can be accessed by this business unit. We'll go and see that. Go to invoice options.
Lexman question here.
Yeah.
So at the time of creating a business unit, assuming that you created a reference data set prior to creating the business units and you signed your own business units, own reference data set at the business unit. So when you're looking at it at the managed business unit set assignment, all of the reference object, would it default it the one that you created, or you have to?
No. Those are seeded for any business unit. Those are common.
So for all of the other reference data set for like canceled order or hold or anything, you have to create your own reference data set.
Not required. Not required. Whatever you are selecting at BU level, okay, automatically these all will get assigned to that common. See, what we are doing with the reference data set, we are assigning specific definition to that. When you say common, that is one of the reference data set. So wherever, see, common is given by Oracle. Common is given by Oracle. So they are providing the default mapping. Apart from that, if you want to manage any information, what you have to do is, for all those definitions, whatever you create, you have to associate with your own definition. However, we assigned our payment terms to whatever the reference data set we created. Now, once again we'll go to that page. We'll talk on that. So take example of, you take any example what you are talking about, cancel. So for example, contract types. Contract types is one of the reference data object. So which reference data set is assigned to this business unit? Common. How many contract types are associated with this common reference data set? All the contract types can be accessed by ERP3 US business unit.
Excuse me, correct.
So that is a point. The channel or cancellation reasons or holds. So how many are associated with this common? Those only you can access when we are recording the transaction for this business unit.
So in this example for a reference data set that we created and we're assigning it to payment term. So in order for us to use that particular reference data set
here
for different,
here
different object.
Yeah, different objects also you can use. Say for example, you associated only payment terms to that. That is the reason what we will do is that we will select for only payment terms here. I'll select here. To the same reference data set, you assign something else. Okay, you assign something else. For example, customer account sites you assign to the same reference data set. That again you select here. Okay. So to the same reference data set, we can assign multiple reference data objects that you can select for the specific reference data objects. That is just name you are creating maybe for specific business unit. And so I written the name as ERP3 RDS. Otherwise, you can write it as ERP3 US Business Unit RDS. So what data you want to provision to this ERP3 US RDS, that you can provision through that reference data set. Okay, that is not just for payment term. That is the reason I didn't write ERP3 RDS for payment term. That can be used to assign any other this reference data set objects data to that. Okay, I want to just go with the multiple contract types. I need 4 contract types when I'm working for this business unit. In that case, what I'll do, I'll create 4 contract types. 4 contract types will assign to ERP3 RDS. That ERP3 RDS I'll select here. I'll override. Otherwise, to this common reference data set, how many contract types are already associated? those you will get from this business unit. When you are working for this business unit, for all those contract types will be able to access, because those all are associated with the common. The common is mapped with this business unit.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So go to invoice options. Manage invoice options. Select and say save and close. Now these invoice options are belongs to ERP3 US business unit. So here we have one parameter called as, one field called as payment terms. So now tell me which payment terms I can see here. How many payment terms I can see and what is the reason?
Is that what net 30?
No. Just see. Invoice options. These invoice options created for ERP3 US business unit. Now, what is the logic here? How many payment terms I can find? How many payment terms can be accessed by specific BU? How you can decide?
Based on the reference data set, whatever you set it up.
Data set. Now we are talking about which business unit? ERP3 US business unit. Let's go to that ERP3 US business unit. For ERP3 business unit, for payment terms, which reference data set is available?
For payment term we just did, right? ERP RDS.
No. I'm not talking about it here. Here, what we have, just I'm talking about. For ERP3 US business unit, for payment terms, reference data object, which reference data set is associated?
Common.
Now, how many payment terms you can access from ERP3 US business unit? That is my question.
All of them assigned to common, right?
That is the point. How many payment terms are associated with the common reference data set? Those you can access, right? You can see now. Here we are. This invoice options are belongs to ERP3. That means for ERP3 US business unit, what are the reference data set is assigned to that reference data set? How many payment terms are already associated? Those you can see here. Many. That means these many payment terms are associated with the common. Now we'll change it. So we don't need that. For this business unit, we need only 2 payment terms which we created. So those 2 are associated with the ERP3 RDS. I'm selecting what we created. Okay, for this business unit, ERP3 US business unit, we are associating the reference data set for payables payment terms. Done. So save and close. Okay, we'll reopen. Now tell me how many payment terms we can access now for this business unit.
Only 2?
Only 2, yes. Hope this is clear to understand how it works. Okay, so we created reference data set. To that reference data set we associate only two payment terms. So that reference data set, if you can map at the BU level by using the task called as business unit set assignments, which you have seen just now. So accordingly system will provision the access. So within that we have two only. Those are ERP net 30 and immediate. That's all. Okay, this is the purpose we use the reference data set. The object can be anything. Okay, one of the object we take an example as payment term. In the same way for any data objects, this is how the payment reference data set can be useful. Fine. Any questions on this, please? Created reference data set. We created payment terms. Those we assigned to RDS. That RDS we associated to BU. Right. The supplier number specification, supplier definition, those already we completed. Now we'll go and create the bank branch and bank account. So to process the payments, we require bank account. Whose bank account? Our bank account. When you are acting as a customer and when you are purchasing something from supplier, so when you are going to make the payment, we have to process the payment from our bank account. That means we are going to create internal bank account, our own bank account, to process the payment to supplier. When you are going to create the bank account, the bank should belongs to branch. So we have to create the branch. When you are creating the branch, there should be a bank. So that means first we have to create the bank, and in which branch we have account, we have to create the branch. Within that branch we have to create the bank account. Okay, we'll go and create bank branch and bank account. These are very simple definitions. We'll see how this can be done in the system. First we'll go and create the bank. So without this bank account information we cannot process the payments. Search for bank. So manage banks. So manage banks. So here we have a sequence of tasks, in sequence only the required task. First we have to create the bank, then bank branch. After bank branch we have to create the bank accounts. So against the manage banks, click on go to task icon. Say create. The bank is belongs to which country? Select country. Country code is US. Bank name, say ERP bank. Just for testing you can go with any test, any data. So I'm just giving the bank name as ERP bank. So after bank creation we have to create the bank branch. Say save and close. So bank is created. Now this is a bank. So now what we can do is select this bank record, ERP bank, this record, you select it, then click on create branch. That means system will create the branch against this bank. Or else we have separate task also, right? Not required. From here also you can directly create. Select bank, against which bank you want to create the branch, say create branch. So provide branch name, ERP branch. or else you can include some which branch and all. And here we have to provide the routing number. Since we selected country as US, for each branch there will be separate routing numbers, so that you have to provide.
Lakshmi, is bank name is unique because if you have multiple branches in the same city,
You
how do
no
you
need to
create?
create bank and branch multiple times. So if you create a bank name once, against to the same name you can create multiple branches. If you say the same branch you have a multiple accounts also, in that case branch also you no need to create again. So you can by selecting the same branch you can create multiple accounts.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
bank and branch we treat as a master data. That is a part of TCA model also, trading community architecture. So I'm just taking any one of the routing number, BOA Bank of America, dollars routing number, because system has a validation. Okay, it will verify how many the digits, how you are entering the routing number, that validation Oracle written. That is reason the some sample numbers I'm taking. Yeah, those are original, but just for our definition sample. So just provide the routing number. Say save and close. We don't need to provide address and the contact information for the branch, not mandatory. Just provide whatever the information is required. Anyway, these all will be done by finance consultant, but we are trying to understand basic level to test and to have some understanding about P2P cycle, including the setups. Done. We created bank and a branch. Now click on done. So create from here also you can create the branch. Now we'll go and create the bank account. Click on go to task icon. Just for information, if you want to create bank account in EBS environment, you cannot create directly. Before you go and create the bank account. So ideally the legal entity acts as a bank account owner. Okay, legal entity acts as a bank account owner means, so reality the bank accounts are owned by company can be represented with a registration is nothing but legal entity. That is the meaning of bank accounts are owned by legal entity. Bank accounts are owned by legal entity means legal entity is nothing but company registration. Registration represents specific company. Okay, so that is a point we have to understand. In EBS, if you want to create the bank account, first you have to set up specific legal entity as a owner for the bank account. Those all will do by using the application called as user management application in EBS. But in the Fusion, that configuration they bypassed. Directly every legal entity can act as a owner for bank account. Okay, so who has some idea about EBS, how to create the bank accounts? Those guys can take this point, others can ignore it. Let's try to understand how to create the bank accounts. So click on create. So select branch, against which branch we are going to create the bank account. So already branch is belongs to specific bank, so we don't need to provide the bank name. Whenever you select the branch, system will understand the branch belongs to which bank. So ERP3 branch, you can provide the bank account name, bank account name as a ERP3 corporate account, our bank account number which we have in the bank, and this bank account is going to be maintained in which currency, the amounts and all, which currency, in rupees, dollars. So legal entity, nothing but it's simple point, this bank account is owned by which legal entity, nothing but which company. Select our legal entity. So ERP3 USA legal entity. So this bank account we can use in which applications? You have to select here. Okay, let's select this bank account we want to use in payables and receivables. When we are working on O2C cycle also, we required this bank account to record the receipts in receivables. At that time it would be useful. So select this bank account we want to use in payables to process the payments, in receivables to receive the payments into this bank accounts. And payroll, if you want to use the same bank account to process the employee salaries and all, so you can enable this checkbox so that the same bank account would be available in the payroll modules also. Fine. So as a mandatory, provide cash account for this bank account. So within this bank account, what are the amounts we are going to hold, those all will be maintained with this account. So ideally, when you are implementing, just how many bank accounts client has, those many cash accounts will create by representing the account names or account numbers. Since we are just testing, you can take cash account without specifying some bank account name or account number, etc. So cash checking account, okay, city account, Citibank account. Done. Now we have to create the documents within this for this bank account. Okay, so payment documents, nothing but checks. Okay, what are the checkbook banker will provide or check leaves? We get some continuous stationery instead of getting the separate check leaves how individual get. The organization can request to provide the continuous stationery where they can insert that stationery in the printer. Whenever we make the payment, this information will be printed on the checks leaves. So the document information you can provide here. Click on create. Payment document. Say how we are going to make the payment here. P3 check. So what kind of stationery we are getting from the banker? They may provide the blank stock. That means the only that stationery they'll provide without any information. Everything we can print from our system, or else the banker can provide pre-numbered stock. Number stock means there will be format of the check. Only will be printing pay to whom we have to pay, whom we are paying, on which date we are paying, how much we are paying. That system will be printing in words also. So that we call as number stock. That means checks they'll provide with numbers. If bank is going to provide to our company the checks without numbers, that we call as a blank stock. That means including the format and everything by following the bank guidelines, we'll be printing from system only. This will be taken care by finance guys. We don't need to worry about it. Okay, let's select as a number stock. And when we are printing that information from the system to the real checks which we are presenting in the printer, so the format should match. So for format alignments and all, Oracle provides some standard or say seeded formats based on for which checks we are going to print. The formats will be aligned by technical people. Okay, for here our testing purpose, you can select predefined format or say seeded format called as standard. This is for check printing purpose, alignments. Okay, what are the check we are inserting in the printer, and how the format of data as per that format data has to be printed from the system also to match this check format which is there in the printer, and to move the data accordingly from the application to the printer, the format need to be designed within the application. So that format here we have to select. Reality when we are implementing, so technical people, finance functional consultant cannot do anything with this. So technical consultant will do the alignments and once they create the format for each bank, that formats based on which bank, I mean, if now say for example this is Citibank check format will be selected here. If you are creating this bank account is belongs to standard chartered check format, related format we have to select here. That's how we have to manage. And document numbers, what are the checks we get from the bank, that numbers we have to maintain. So we got checks from the banker, so where the range of checks we got as a 10,001 to say 12,000, that we have to specify, say okay. So this is how we have to create the bank account, and we have to provide the document related information. Now this bank account can be used by which business unit? So this bank account required in which business unit? We have to assign this bank account to specific business unit, so that this bank account would be available within the BU to perform the transactions. I mean to say, if it is a payables, payments; if it is a receivables, receipts. So assign this bank account to BU. Here is a tab, business unit access. Select it.
I- Ideally, under legal entity, all the business unit will be covered, no?
Yeah,
Let's
exactly. So under this business unit, how many business units you have, for those business units only you can assign this bank account. You have two legal entities, LE1 and LE2, legal entity 1 and legal entity 2. Under LE1 you have five business units. Under LE2 you have business units. Now we are creating, say you are creating the bank account under, by selecting the LE1. That bank account can be used for the BUs which are under same LE, not other LE related BUs. Clear? Okay. So that is the point. So now we can assign this bank account to BUs, which BUs are under this legal entity only. If you have some other BUs, you cannot assign if those BUs are belongs to different legal entity. That is a point. So click on add. See, we are able to see only one business unit, even this is set up. Reason, under that legal entity only this BU we have. Select it. So cash account is defaulting from here itself. Bank account level already we given, the same it is taking. Say okay. Now say save and close. Done. So this is how we have to create the bank account definition. First we created bank, then branch, bank account. Within the account we created documents also. The same bank account we assigned to business unit. One bank account can be associated with the multiple business units. When I talk about EBS, in release 12, yes, one bank account can be assigned to multiple operating units. In 11i, one bank account can be assigned to only one operating unit. It cannot be assigned up to 11i. From release 12, yes, one account can be associated with the multiple operating units in EBS, release 12. In Fusion, the same logic. Okay, applicable. Done. Now we have to create the payment process profile. What is the meaning of payment process profile? When you are processing the payments, payment process, when you are processing the payments, with which profile we want to process the payments? That means when we are processing the payment, so by following which criteria we want to process the payments? We want to process the payments for only one particular business unit or specific business unit, or we want to process the payments only for particular currency related invoices or different currency related invoices, or we want to process the payment for specific payment method, or else only check payment methods or electronic payment methods or cash related payments. So this all you can specify. Again, we can process the payments for only specific bank account or different bank accounts. All the criteria when you are going to process the payments, okay, by following which criteria you want to process the payments, that you can define by using the payment process profile. We can define set of rules or conditions how the payments can be done, but that you can do by using the payment process profile. We'll go and see how to define it. Search for payment process profile. Payment process profile. Okay, manage payment process profiles. Click on go to task icon. Click on create. Here provide the name, ERP tree, payment process profile. You can just provide the code ERP tree, payment process profile, and select the check format. Okay, bank account level also we selected check format, standard check format we selected. Select same here also. Payment file format is nothing but check format. So standard check. Process type, say printed. Printed means check payments. And here you can specify the criteria. Payment method. Any method related payments you want to process this payment process profile are specific. All means any payment method. Specific means you can select whether you want to process only check related payments or which method. So these are different methods. Check, clearing, bills payable. These are different options. Electronic payments. So you can select how you want to use this payment process profile. Let's go with the open criteria. That means this by using this payment process profile, you can process any payment method, any type of payment method payments, all, and disbursement bank account. By using this payment process profile, you can process the payments by using any bank account. Disbursement bank account means the account which we use to process the payments to suppliers. That is our bank account, which is internal. So otherwise, this payment process profile can be used to process the payments for only specific bank account. If you want to specify, you can specify that. Business unit. By using this payment process profile, if you want to process the payments only for specific bank business unit, you can select here, or else by default all. So any currency or specific currency. These are all conditions, rules you can specify. Okay, just say save and close. This information would be enough for basic definition. So provide the name, select payment format, and just say save and close. Done.
This profile can be applied for between two different legal entities, only under the legal entity.
So legal entities. When you say business unit, you can list out a number of business units. Now we specified all, right? All in the sense it is applicable for all. Before that, one more point you have see. Before that, bank account also you have. Okay.
Yeah.
Before that, bank account also, if you are selecting specific bank account, that means you are limiting to specific legal entity range, right? The bank accounts belongs to specific legal entity. Since you are keeping that option open, the BUs also open. The BUs can belongs to any legal entity. Okay, that's how it is applicable. If you are restricting at that bank account level, bank account is specific means you are telling to the system there itself, it's only limited to particular LE. One bank account means so it belongs to one LE. When you specify one bank account, that means you are specifying one legal entity. When you are selecting this what I could say, like business units also. Those business unit range should fall under same legal entity, no scope.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how system will understand.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. So just that's how we have to create the payment process profile. Now we have to assign the roles for payables to work on the payables process, invoice creation, payment, and many other tasks. So we have to assign the roles. For payables, primarily we have three roles, seeded roles. So we'll go and assign those three roles to user. Go to security console. Go to users.
Lakshman, security console is not appearing in our practice instance.
Yeah, we'll discuss if any issue maybe in the end of the session. Yeah.
Okay.
Click on username. So click on edit. Okay, to provision the access to this user for payables process, we have to assign the payable related roles. Just click on add. So three roles we have, say accounts payable manager. I'll just take into the sheet so that when you are practicing you can use this. AP roles. So select and assign. The next role is payable supervisor or specialist. Payable supervisor.
So all these can call duty roles.
No, job roles. We discussed in yesterday's session, right?
I missed this
Of course,
session. Sorry.
beginning also we discussed. Okay, we can assign only job roles to the user.
Okay.
Duty roles are similar to EBS submenus. We cannot assign submenus to responsibility creation time, right? If you want to use any submenu for responsibility, you have to create menu against that. Then only you can use. Same logic here. Yeah. These all are job roles. We can assign only job roles to the user. Fine. So the other role is specialist. Assign. Now for these three roles, we have to associate our BU, right? Then our next task is provide data access for user. So for this user, we assign these three roles. For these three roles, we have to map our business unit. The same we did for inventory and purchasing also. A similar task we are going to do for payables roles. So task name is data access for users. This you can find from the directly search page or from project. Data access for users. Now click on add username ERP3. Select role accounts payable manager. Security contest is business unit. Find our business unit. Click on duplicate. So username remains same. Select role payable specialist, contest is business unit, select RBU. Just type the name, it will fetch complete definition of name. The other role is accounts payable supervisor. Okay, seems to that is not assigned. We selected right. Okay, so seems it is missing. So supervisor, select, say add role membership. Security contest is business unit, select BU name. Say save and close. Submit the role synchronization job, nothing but LDAP. Go to schedule process. Yeah, submit. We given the data access for business unit and we submitted LDAP. Now after LDAP submission, everything will get synchronized and we have to go and open the periods in AP so that payables will allow us to create and process the transactions. We'll try to open the periods. If synchronization is completed, we'll be able to do it, or else we'll wait for some time and do it. So we assign those roles because the role system is adding payable section within the navigator. To open the periods for payables, go to invoices task. It will take us to invoice workbench where you can create different type of invoices. So it is not allowing us to navigate to that even we after selecting. That means the role synchronization is not completed. Again, it is not showing the payable section now. That means the synchronization is not completed. Just will wait for a few minutes. Or else meantime we can sign out and sign in. Could refresh the data, the synchronization data once you go with a fresh session. 1 second please. So under payables, click on invoices task. So now it's opening. That means everything got synchronized. Go to task list. Go to task list. Within this task list, if you scroll it till down, you can see one task called as manage accounting periods. The last one. Click on that. So here directly system won't display the BU name. Okay, what are the ledgers are associated with the different BUs ledger names it will display. You select our ledger. If you can open the period for our ledger from payables, that will open the periods for our BU. So here is our ledger, ERP3 USA primary ledger. How many BUs are associated with that? Only one BU. What is the first period within our accounting calendar? Open that.
Can't we perform this task through setup and maintenance function?
So setup and maintenance we don't have. This is only the option like the user. This can be provisioned with the roles only, transaction based roles. Okay. So this will have a control on the transaction creation, right? That is available only through this process.
Yeah, to job roles.
Yes. No. Even setup part also will be provisioned through job role only. But those job roles related to configuration, say application
Yeah.
implementation consultant. So roles are
Right.
classified: configuration related roles and process related roles. So we submitted to open the first period. Now the target period is John. John 19. So when you're practicing, make sure that your calendar has periods for 2019 also. If you don't have periods for 2019, when you're trying to open the periods through this navigation, you don't find your primary ledger in this list. If you have periods only for 18, you don't find your primary ledger in this list. So that is the reason. Just verify, make sure that you have periods for current year also. That already we have seen how to create the periods. It's auto creation. So that's what we have to take care of. Done. Up to current period, all the period status is open. You could see up to John 19 period status is open. Now system will allow us to perform the transactions. So this transaction creation and all we'll see the tomorrow session. In tomorrow session, what we'll do, we'll see the basic P2P cycle flow. We'll create the requisition, we'll submit for approval, then we'll convert the requisition as a purchase order, then we'll create receipt against that. By matching, we'll create the invoice in the payables, and we'll process the payment for that invoice. That's how we can see the cycle of P2P. Once we're done with that, we can focus on purchasing. What are the different documents we can create, or the purpose, what are the other features we have, and the routing, receipt routing methods or matchings, etc. Everything will go more detail level. That it's all about how we can create invoice in the payables automatically with the pay and receipt, etc. We'll discuss and we'll start working on core purchasing part. Any questions on today's session, please? Fine, no questions. So then we'll connect tomorrow and we'll see the P2P cycle. Then we can focus on purchasing application detail level. Okay, thank you all. Have a good day and good night. See you tomorrow.